What's going on, guys? Ian here, and today I'm proud to present the €550 gaming PC. Now before the video starts, I just want to let you guys know that this computer is made of both old and new gaming parts. That's how I was able to make it into such a powerful computer on such a small budget. Now without giving away any of the parts, I can safely tell you guys that this computer can run most if not all games currently out on the market at max settings 1080p at least 60 plus FPS if not more. And in order to build this computer on this price point, I had to snag some serious bargains both on Amazon and on local buy and sell groups. To start off with, let's have a look at the motherboard. It's a Gigabyte Z170 Gaming K3 board that I was lucky enough to snag for €40 off of Facebook Marketplace. Now the person I bought it off of had two of them and decided that he wanted to sell one for a low price, so was happy to let it go for €40 instead of the 104 that is usually its retail price. Now the motherboard itself is an LGA 1151 board that supports up to 4 sticks of RAM, 2 PCIe slots and an M.2 slot, as well as having red LEDs, 2 USB 3.1 ports, and can overclock any 6th or 7th generation K CPU. I was also able to buy this brand new, which probably makes this one of the best bargains I have ever got. The CPU, I was able to buy an i5-6400 clocked at 2.9 GHz, which unfortunately isn't overclockable. However, I did also get 8 GB of DDR4 included with it for free. Buying 4 cores and 4 threads alongside 8 GB of DDR4 RAM for €110 makes this a really good deal, but a really rare one at that. The RAM itself is 2 4GB sticks, both of which are just plain green PCBs. However, they are clocked at 2133 MHz, which does make them okay when it comes to gaming. For the case, I went for a Corsair Carbide Spec Alpha that cost me just over €75. To keep with the style of the build, I did opt for a red and black model, which also came with 2 red LED fans and 1 non-LED fan at the back. The case also does have a fan controller on the front of it, which lets me control the 2 fans in the front and the one in the back, and was one of the deciding factors when deciding between buying this case and the Corsair Carbide Spec 04. It comes with 3 3.5-inch hard drive bays as well as 2 2.5-inch hard drive bays. It also supports up to ATX motherboards, ATX power supplies, but doesn't support any 5.25-inch drive. Personally, I think this is a great looking case. However, it is slightly more on the pricey side, so I would not recommend this for more budget orientated builders. I also got a great deal on the graphics card, which is a GTX 970 that I was able to buy for €140. Having 4 GB of GDDR5 memory and a 1.1 GHz core clock makes this graphics card a rather formidable foe when it comes to modern gaming. It's also a Twin Frozer 6 card, which makes this run very cool and very quiet. It also has a rather cool white LED on the side of it, which does add to the aesthetic of the build. Luckily, the graphics card and processor match each other very nicely as they are utilized equally during games and benchmarks. This was one of the only parts in the computer that I thought would not work, as the person who I bought it off had it in a anti-static bag in his bag, however had wrapped it up in tons of t-shirts which I thought could have destroyed the graphics card. But luckily I was proven wrong when I saw the computer boot up for the first time. Storage was one of the only places where I did cheap out a little. Instead of going for both an SSD and a hard drive, I opted just to go for an M.2 SSD. Not to say that the M.2 SSD is a small capacity, it's actually a 240 GB one, and is faster than a conventional 2.5-inch SSD. It is also a better boot drive as it is secured straight onto the motherboard instead of having any cables having to go between it. Now the SSD that I did buy was a WD Green 240 GB SSD and cost me just over €40 at €44.50 total. I know many people will probably be telling me that I shouldn't have spent so much money on my next part and should have spent most of it on more storage. Though 240 GB is not a lot of storage, it is enough to store most of the games that people play, and buying a 1 TB hard drive only costs around 40 euros extra brand new. Now I can get onto the cooler, which is probably one of the places I could have saved more money and probably spent that money on better places, such as storage or maybe even more RAM. But water coolers are pretty damn cool, and I think that most PCs should have one, even though they are very expensive. They don't actually add any extra performance unless you have an overclockable processor, but it is nice to have a look at your BIOS and see that all 4 cores of your processor are idling at 16 to 17 degrees Celsius. There's also that really nice white light that does illuminate on the actual block that sits on the processor, even though the 90 euros that I did pay for the Corsair H100X is probably not worth it in the end. If you were to follow my example with this PC, I would recommend you spend more money with storage, or maybe if there is another, I don't know, i5-6500K that costs just a little bit more, I would go for an air cooler and opt for that, as an air cooler that is sufficiently big would be able to cool an overclocked 6500K, but the downside is your computer won't look as cool. Finally, I have my power supply, which is a VS450 from Corsair, which I was able to buy for 40 euros off of Amazon. It's a decent power supply, though it is on the lower end of Corsair's power supply line. Now, many of you probably will be questioning why I went for a 450 watt power supply, especially when it's on the lower end. This is because although I am running a GTX 970 and an i5, the computer itself only takes up to 382 watts at peak performance, which is well within the threshold of a 450 watt power supply. It was also cheap. A 40 euro power supply that is from a reputable brand is something I will never pass up, so it kind of made sense. It's quiet, it's discreet, and it powers everything without any issues, and I'm completely happy with it. In conclusion, I think this is one of the best 550 euros money can buy. Various other YouTubers have attempted a 550 euro build, however most of them do use Ryzen 3 processors and the integrated Vega graphics, which are superior only to Intel HD graphics. Otherwise, I think that this computer could have been maybe a little bit better had I added a little bit more storage to it, but overall it's absolutely great computer and probably the best you can buy for 550 euros. Also guys, if you stayed until the end of this video, I want to thank you guys a bunch. It is extremely hard to gain traction in the YouTube creator scene with all these large YouTube channels, and pretty much all of the good ideas already being taken up. So every view means a bunch to me, and every new subscriber even more. So thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next video.